Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make a map in Photoshop. We're just going to create the basic layout of the map during the screencast. We're going to start by creating a new document in Photoshop, which I have already done. The pixels for this canvas are 2000 by 1458. I've found that that's the ideal size for a map, and especially for posting the map online to learning management systems. So I'm not going to actually draw anything by hand here. I'm going to make Photoshop do all of the work by using filters. So in order to use the filters that we need to use, we need to create a new layer on our project. So I'm going to come down to this layers panel and hit the plus sign here, plus sign down here. And as you can see, a new layer has been added and is currently active. So once I have that new layer open, I'm going to go to my toolbar. I'm going to click Filter, Render, Clouds. Now, I need to make these clouds clearer so that I can see the beginning of my continents. And in order to make them clearer, I need to apply a filter called Threshold. In order to apply that filter, or that adjustment rather, I need to go to my Layers panel, go down to the bottom toolbar, and click the New Fill or Adjustment layer. I'm going to find Threshold, click on Threshold, and as you can see, the appearance of my clouds changes, and I have a new threshold layer in my Layers panel. Now, if you're not happy with the layout of your clouds, you can go back to the Filter panel, Render, and Render New Clouds, or you can use the Mac shortcut Control-Command-F to change the shape of your clouds. The only thing is you need to make sure that you have layer 1 selected before you do any of those things. So before you click Filter, Render, Clouds, or before you use the keypad shortcut Control-Command-F, because otherwise you're going to be editing your threshold layer. I'm going to just kind of quickly flick through until I find one that I have mostly white in the middle. Because the white portion of our clouds is going to become the continent, and the black portions are going to be water. So I want something that's a little bit more central, white land, more in the middle here. Getting a lot of water. Clouds are not my friend today. Perfect. So once I have found a layer that works for me, I am going to make a border around my map. So I'm going to activate my threshold layer again because I want my new layer to be at the top of my layers panel. So I'm going to activate the threshold again, and I'm going to click the Add New Layer button. When I've added the new layer, I'm going to open my brush tool. I'm going to go up to my brush settings. I'm going to make sure that my brush's hardness is set to 0%. I want my brush size to be closer to 125, and I want this nice sort of foggy brush option. And all I'm going to do is brush around the border of my map. Now, my default color right now is white, and I want my map border to be water, so I'm going to use this icon here, this little arrow, to flip-flop the colors of my brush. So now, my foreground color, the color that I'm going to currently use, is going to be black. So when I use my brush here, as you can see, my brush is eliminating the white, the land masses, because I am just simply painting over it with my black brush. I'm just going to make, it doesn't have to be a huge border, just enough to sort of give yourself a little bit of water around the edges, and if we want to add a little bit of antique or aged effects later, we have some room around the corners to kind of let those effects really show through. Alright. That might actually be a little bit too thick of a border, but that's okay for our intents and purposes here. Now the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to adjust our land and water masses by filling in, again using the brush tool, any inland lakes or these huge sort of seas here to make our continent or our landmass a little bit more connected. Now this isn't required. If you would like a bunch of islands or a bunch of smaller land masses, then you are welcome to use it or to leave it as it is and just use it. But I want a few more land masses, so I'm going to flip the colors of my brush, once again using this tool, so that way the white is the foreground color. I'm going to go back to my brush and I'm going to change the brush size to something a little bit closer to like 25, so it's kind of small. And I'm going to choose 100% hardness. I'm going to choose this hard brush stroke here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in, I could actually go a little bit bigger on my brush. I'm going to fill in, we'll go 70, these inland lakes here. Not all of them, I'm going to leave a little bit so that my continent has a little bit of character here. But I'm going to fill in all of this water to give myself a little bit more of a solidified landmass. A little bit too overkill here. So I'm going to just undo that. Connect these here, but I'm going to leave that sort of weird shape there. And I want that kind of rough edge here, so I think I'm just going to fill in this up here, and maybe a little bit more of this. Connect these pieces. And then I'm going to connect a little bit over here, but I'm just going to get rid of all of these sort of outlying land masses. So I'm going to switch my brush color once again to black. I'm going to make my brush size a little bit closer to 100, and I'm just going to fill in these islands here, these sort of land masses over here. And I don't have to fill them in completely. Like I could leave these little ones here as like little islands, and I'm going to leave these ones. I'm going to get rid of this one, and these little ones here, and then I'm just going to kind of cut this off to make it a little bit more perfect. And I'm just kind of butting into the edge a little bit so that way it's not a perfectly straight line that I have here on my continent. I'm going to do the same thing up here, just sort of break this line so it's not just that sort of fade. So I'm going to make this my continent. Actually, I'll leave that lake. I'm going to actually expand it a little bit, make my brush really tiny. Just kind of, oops, didn't change the color. I'm going to flip my color here. Just expand this little lake here a little bit more. So I have some islands there. Alright, and that looks good. So here we have the basic outline of our continent.